TC Jufolk is supported by Maslin LLP, a Minneapolis commercial law firm dedicated to providing solutions for businesses, supporting the community, and advancing civil rights for more than 65 years. With particular appreciation of partner Leora Maccabee's contributions as a founder of TC Jufolk, Maslin is proud to uphold the legacy of our founders Samuel H. Maslin, Marvin Borman, Hy Edelman, and Irving Brand. We are committed to serving both the community and the profession, as well as providing an exceptional standard in the practice of law. From corporate counsel to bet the company litigation, Maslin LLP. Online at maslon.com. Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jufolk. This week I talk with Elizabeth Lamin, an assistant Ramsey County attorney and a candidate for the Dakota County Attorney position on the ballot next November. We talk about her interest in alternative court systems, how to try and reduce the number of incarcerated people, and how her Jewish values drive her legal values on this week's Who the Folk podcast. Elizabeth Lamin, welcome to the Who the Folk podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
We are excited to talk to you. So you are running for Dakota County Attorney, not next month, but in 13 months from now. Your campaign is well underway for November 2022. I guess, for starters, what is it that led you to want to run for this office?
Well, pretty quickly, my story is I was born actually in the former Soviet Union, and my family immigrated for religious persecution, and we came to St. Paul in 1979. And thanks to the Jewish community and a lot of community and family support, I was able to grow up in a very stable house. In high school, my parents moved to Dakota County, grew up in Dakota County, and ended up going to law school and have spent a career as public servant. And I've been working as a criminal prosecutor for over 15 years and on the front line in St. Paul and seeing some of the things that work and are effective and areas that we can improve. And over this past year, the Dakota County Attorney who had been there for 33 years, Jim Backstrom, retired. And so this, I thought, was the opportunity for me to enter the race and give my years of experience and commitment to public service to provide a fresh perspective and to allow Dakota County to really be a model for the criminal justice system, how we can move forward in this current time.
So you're a county attorney for Ramsey County currently.
Exactly. I'm an assistant Ramsey County attorney. I work in the adult criminal division, handling primarily homicides and shooting cases.
Okay. So the county attorney, like the main county attorney, is an elected position. Your position is one you just, you see, you apply for, or you hopefully get.
Exactly.
Okay. Sort of the frontline prosecutor type roles. So what is it about your experience in Ramsey County that you think would make you a good fit for Dakota County?
Well, I have a deep love of Dakota County. My parents live here. Me and my partner are raising our two teenage kids here. And so I think Dakota County is a wonderful place to live. And they do a lot of things really well. But over the years, when you have the same type of individual and same type of, you develop blind spots, essentially. And so I think being able to come in a little bit from the outside, I can give Dakota County a fresh perspective and really focus on evidence-based and outcome-based strategies for how to deal with what is happening currently in the criminal justice system. So being on the front line in St. Paul, I routinely try some of the most challenging cases, and I've developed very strong relationships with the criminal justice partners, everyone from police, probation, judges, other attorneys. And I believe those skills and project management skills and handling complex trials, I can apply to Dakota County. And I have some ideas of how we can begin to look at some of the things that are working well and areas that we can improve in Dakota County.
So it's, it's you're a lawyer, but also it's a political position as much as a, legal one, I suppose, right? Because you're setting policy as opposed to being the front line in the courtroom attorney in most cases. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that something you'd want to give up? Because it sounds like you're pretty good at the, front line in the courtroom thing.
Well, I'm actually in the process of moving to a different role and giving it up.
Oh, okay.
Because I think, it's in one sense, once you've been on the front line long enough, you begin to see things that are not working. Here's a statistic that has shocked me. And Minnesota, from 1985 to 2015, our population grew 36%. Incarcerated population grew 284%. That is not a sustainable model that we have, and it has not brought about a complete elimination of crime.
So what would your solution be to help reduce that? Obviously, crime is still going to happen, but how do you suggest reducing the incarcerated population so it's a little more commensurate with overall population growth?
So there are a couple things. One is that huge incarcerated population, which we pay over $40,000 to keep someone incarcerated for a year. And that is money that really should be, right? We as a society want to spend that elsewhere. One of the big underlying reasons of this huge incarceration increase was, frankly, the war on drugs. And I think we have come to realize, many of us, I personally have, that the criminal justice system is not the best place at all to deal with substance abuse or to deal with mental health. And that we need to create a system that off-ramps as often as possible substance abuse, underlying issues, and mental health issues, working with community partners and trying to get those people out into the community, partners to treat these underlying issues. One way is to begin to look at substance abuse not as just a criminal endeavor, but that it is a chronic disease, right? That people are and begin to treat it as such, as the public health crisis that it is.
Is that something that you're seeing? Because I've been hearing that for a long time. And is that something you're starting to see within the system, that there is that mindset shift, or not quite yet?
Well, there are evidence-based programs that are really effective for dealing with it. For instance, there's something called treatment courts, and there's something, a drug court is one of them. So drug court is a much more holistic approach where the underlying issue is substance abuse. So someone is charged with a crime, and rather than going through the traditional criminal process where they appear in court, they either plead guilty or not guilty, have a trial, that they are referred to a special court where there's a prosecutor, a judge, a defense attorney, and a social worker. They are assessed. They have a Rule 25 assessment. They are required to go through treatment. There are different tracks. These are evidence-based. They've been tested. They're very, very successful, and they're used now throughout the country. The challenge in Dakota County is that they only admit about 12 people a year to their drug court program, even though they charge over 700 cases. And so that's something I would really look to do, is to make sure that we prioritize that type of court and get people whose underlying issues are substance abuse into that. Because for many, many years, myself and my own career included, we focused on that one moment and that conduct. We never looked at the underlying issues and said that's someone else's concern. And I think we can't do that anymore as a society. And especially in the criminal justice system, we need to work together to figure out what is the crime driver here. Is it just, if it's someone just addicted to drugs and they're able to still function in society, because there are some of those people, they're treated a certain way. But there are people who commit crime. For instance, I was prosecuting someone for burglary. Well, this individual, through his attorney, said, actually, I'm a meth addict and I've been breaking into garages for years to feed my meth addiction. Meth and was not the charge. It was just burglary, and asked for me to help this person get into drug court. I fought for that individual to get into drug court, and they became a model drug court participant. They were even, I think, like captain of the softball team.
Oh, wow.
And that one happened in Dakota County. In Dakota County, they do not let people into drug court unless their charge is drugs. And we need to move away from that.
Let me ask you then, is it a resource problem or a problem of will?
I think it's both.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think if you prioritize that, if you screen cases for it, if you set that as one of your top policy things, that's what you will focus on, and you will focus the resources to do that. So I would focus very strongly to increase drug court. Another problem-solving court that exists, a treatment court that exists in most of the counties in the metro, but not in Dakota County, unfortunately, is Veterans Court. Mm-hmm. So that's where veterans who commit a crime are sent to a special court with a prosecutor, a judge, defense attorney, and also a veteran specialist, so they can deal with their underlying issues, which frequently involve maybe some substance abuse, mental health, and they can access services. And the goal is, at the end of this, to have them be part of society in a very different way, have housing set up, get employment, be on a path to success. And these, again, are evidence-based, if done according to the standard practices, are very successful. Dakota County does have great services for veterans, but they don't actually have a veterans court, which is a problem, because veterans then in the criminal justice system are kind of put through like the rest of the individuals and not off-ramped into a way that they could actually transform their lives and ours.
So it sounds like the underlying end product to both a treatment court and a veterans court type of situation is rehabilitation. That it gives offenders who fit into those specific realms a way to rehabilitate themselves and become, and I hate this phrase, I'm sorry, a productive member of society. It kind of puts them in that place on that road to be able to do that.
I think that's a fair way to look at it. And by, again, addressing the underlying substance abuse, there's also mental health treatment courts, mm-hmm. right? That if mental health issues are addressed, then they won't be committing crimes. Then we don't need to incarcerate them, and they can pay restitution and be part of society. I mean, I think that's how we want to look at it, right? Because if our goal is just to say, you're bad, we're going to punish you, we've been doing that for a long time. And I've done it in court. I've seen it done, and it's not actually a deterrent. I had a case a couple years ago where there was a murder trial, and a young man, he was only 23, got sent to prison for murder for the rest of his life. His younger brother, who was 18, 19 at the time, was there and watched his older brother get sent to prison. A year later, that younger brother committed murder. And when he was interviewed by police, he said, I just don't want to get as much time as my brother got.
Oh.
And so it goes
now that
to
is
show,
heartbreaking.
Yeah. It just goes to show there's not this, we don't have a deterrent system, right? And so could we have, if we would have dealt with underlying trauma, if we would have, could something have happened much sooner along the way? I think that's what we need to start being open to. I have a whole series. I mean, what really started me on this path was handling a homicide where a young man was killed at Indian Mounds Park in St. Paul, and he had a group, about a half dozen friends with him, and they were very, very traumatized by his murder. They were there. They watched him die. And initially when I met them, they were all they were in shock, right? And they were crying. But over the next 3 to 4 years, every single one of them ended up in prison. They never received services. We never reached out to them, right? And it's hurt people concept. And conversely, healed people heal people. And I became very close with the mother of this young man. And we ended up working with a group to form a restorative justice circle of support for families and moms who've lost children, and to help them connect with community and with other young men. And it was through this, we did this for a couple years up until basically COVID ended it, that the mom said, after we went through the trial and had the individuals convicted and sent to prison, she said it was only through going through these restorative justice circles that she finally started to heal, because the criminal justice system didn't do that for her. And it's not set up that way, unfortunately. And so we need to start to look at what is community harm? How can we really heal the community to really kind of move past where we are?
What is it that made you so passionate about this type of work from a prosecutor's position? Because obviously, you watch enough true crime shows on TV or podcasts. The job of the prosecutor is to get results and send people to prison. You don't often hear, or certainly you don't hear enough, of the people in that position looking for the restorative justice, the rehabilitation opportunities to try to change the way the system works. What was it that put you on that path as opposed to the sort of hard-ass prosecutor?
Well, I definitely started out as a hard-ass prosecutor.
Okay, fair.
And I definitely, when I'm in court, I'm very serious. But I think it was really kind of that experience and doing this over 15 years and literally seeing the same families, younger siblings, younger cousins, just going through the system and never really getting any of the help they need to get out of it. And realizing that, I remember I had a case where a young man has ended up pleading guilty. He robbed someone over drugs with a gun. And so we sent him into prison, and his mom was very angry at us and kind of yelling at us in the back. And he went to prison. And so on the one hand, you would think that's a win for the victim. Well, when this young man came out of prison, only several years later, he got out, I think 3 years later, he shot 3 people within a month. Because while he was in prison, it became very clear that he has very serious mental illness, but he was never treated. He did not behave well. He was in isolation, and he got worse and worse. And when he came out, there wasn't a solid reentry service program. He went couch surfing, he got a gun, and he did retribution to everyone he thought had wronged, and he thought about it. And this time, when he went to prison again, his mom was in the back crying and said, "My son is not well. I beg you, please help him."
Yeah, but I'm going to be a cynic here for a sec. That's, I feel like that's the kind of thing a lot of parents would say. How do you take it at face value that they really aren't well and need treatment beyond just being sent away?
Well, I think we've just come to realize if the system we had worked, right, America's 5% of the population, 25% of incarceration. If the system we had set up actually worked, we should have no crime right now at all, right? We have mastered the art of putting people in custody and incarcerating them. There should be no violent crime, but there is. So clearly what we're doing is not working, right? We should not be in this situation. So we need to start looking at what actually works, because I want a society for myself and my family and my kids that is safe for everyone, right? And so being on the front line and repeatedly watching, kind of sending to prison people who victimized other people. And then I often get victim, witness, defendant. same 200 group of people, but their roles in the system just changes. So one case, someone will be the victim, the next case they're the witness, the third one they're the defendant, and it just cycles through. And so that's where, and it's a lot of money, right? And that's where I become just so convinced that we need to do something else. Now, I want to be clear. When someone is in the process of harming others and harming society, they need to be taken out of that situation.
Right.
In no way am I saying that someone committing violent crime should just be on the street. That absolutely not. And so we need to remove them, but then we need to make sure, and we need to commit, and people like me need to commit to working with community and their families to provide services for them and really start to hold them accountable, meaning have the community come forward, have a space for the community to be able to have a moral voice in how they've harmed the community, and have them be part of the community so they can actually repair the harm they've caused.
Well, I think it's refreshing to at least hear new ideas, that if nothing else, that it's just, it doesn't need to be the same way it's always been. We don't need to just keep on keeping on with the same system that's been in place forever, that I think you've laid out some pretty clear evidence doesn't really work as it should.
And I mean, I think I kind of go back to these specialty courts. There are actually a lot of really effective things out there. There's no reason I would want to reinvent the wheel. I think it's just following the best practices, looking at what's happening, and then implementing things that are effective. And all these things I talk about, there are, they're really effective drug court programs. They're really effective mental health court programs, DWI court programs. They're effective family, juvenile programs. And I think it's just building a coalition, getting community support, connecting to community partners, connecting to political leaders, and helping to work on those things that you can actually change.
So, one of the things that I find interesting, you led with it right up front, is the way the Jewish community helped resettle you and your family coming over from the former Soviet Union, 40 plus years ago. How much of that experience and how much the Jewish community helped you do you sort of take into your work as an attorney, and how your Jewish values guide you in what you do?
It's fundamental. It's at my core. I am a product of the investment that the Jewish community has done. I was fortunate enough when we came to America, it was because of the Jewish community brought me and my family to St. Paul, right? They helped resettle, helped my parents get job, helped us go to Camp Butwin. I was fortunate to be in the first day school class at Simchatura, where teachings of ethics and values and moral struggles and how to live an ethical life was core to our curriculum. And then I got to go to, all the summer camps. And then after college, I even did a program called Avodah, where I lived I was in the first class to do that, lived in New York City there was 9 of us in a house working on anti-poverty issues throughout New York. And I managed a food pantry on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And we lived in community, learned how to live a Jewish life in community and how to live your values. I mean, Judaism is so rich. I mean, we just finished with the Hagim, and there's so much reflection. And I think it's constant. That's the beauty of my job, is that I actually do have moral struggles. And that's what I've been going through, right? How can I say I want to heal the world, make the world a better place, and then, just kind of sit back and do the same thing that I know doesn't work, right? I need to pursue this to really fulfill my commitment as a Jew.
Well, I think it's excellent. I think it's a great example of putting your Jewish values to work for you on a daily basis. And, I'm curious, though, the campaign is well underway already, but we got a long time till the election. Why do campaigns start so early?
Well, I haven't really campaigned. The last time I campaigned was in law school, and that was 20 years ago. And even though I volunteered for campaigns, I've never run my own. And so I needed a little bit of time to gather up my committee, to begin to figure out how to do this. I still have a full-time job. I'm still a mom with two kids. And so I do this on top of my regular work. And so I'm glad I've had this time to begin to kind of I don't know how else to say it, but spin my wheels a little bit,
Yeah.
to feel overwhelmed, to binge on a lot of Netflix series while I refocus myself and really come up with a plan and strategy, and be able to connect with a lot of people. Dakota County, it's the third population-wise largest county in Minnesota with 429,000 people. And it's also geographically very spread out. And so I am developing a campaign plan to get my name out, to connect with voters, to connect with thought leaders, to connect with, all of the various pieces in the criminal justice system. And that takes time.
Yeah, it does. It is a big. Yeah, I have some experience working in Dakota County. It is a very large. It's just in northern Dakota County where I worked. It is a huge county geographically. It is a lot of ground to cover.
And to think, I mean, the only other campaign that's this similar size would be a sheriff, and then it's, basically Congress and
Right.
CD2. So it's a daunting task, but I'm really enjoying it. It's a very interesting challenge. Meeting a lot of people, getting to know a lot of people, getting a lot of support from a lot of people, which I really appreciate. And if people want to learn more about my campaign, they can go to my website, elizabethlamin.com, or Google me.
Well, excellent. Well, Elizabeth, last two questions, and we will let you get back to, I assume, probably your day job at this point, not the campaign, given the hour that we're speaking. But what is your favorite Jewish holiday?
Simchatura.
Oh, okay. So just past it.
Yes.
Why Simchatura?
Two reasons. One is my family's from St. Petersburg, and my mom used to tell me the story that Simchat was the only holiday that they were able to actually celebrate in the Soviet Union. So interesting, just a couple interesting family stories, because something about Simchat Torah, so many people would go to the synagogue in St. Petersburg, hundreds upon hundreds and hundreds, that the KGB was not able to successfully document them all, and everyone was dancing, and it felt like the only safe space.
Okay.
And then I enjoy, you've had so much reflection, and I really enjoy the joy of Simchat Torah. The ability, I love dancing, I love horror dancing, and being able to connect. I feel like in some ways it's a holiday that you celebrate, you celebrate it in the synagogue. We this year danced in the parking lot, which was wonderful. Be able to have a l'chaim with some of your, the fellow congregants. I feel like I come together with people individually around Simchat Torah than you do with, many, many others.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's a very fun holiday, no question. And what is your favorite Jewish food?
Um,
I know we end on the hard ones.
well, I'll say whitefish. So
Interesting.
at our synagogue, there's a tradition that there's often whitefish at Simchat Torah. So we just had whitefish. So I love all Jewish food, but I love whitefish, and I think it's because it's something I didn't really grow up with,
Okay.
and then it's one of those things that, especially when I lived in New York, I,
Sure.
tried to find
Sure.
the best whitefish, and so whitefish bagels. I love all that.
Okay. Excellent. Well, Elizabeth Lamin, thank you so much for joining me. Certainly appreciate it, and wish you the best of luck on this long slog of a campaign. But we will keep our eye on that race come next fall, and wish you the best of luck. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me.
The Who the Folk podcast is part of the Jew Folk Podcast Network, a product of Jew Folk Inc. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you have suggestions for other podcast guests, please email them to me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. For our other shows, check out tcjewfolk.com/podcast.